would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to it, folks. Today is Thursday, September 29th, 2016. And I hope you're just rocking the week, getting it all done. Got a few nice little tidbits on the menu for today. A nice little aperitif. Start you off with something perhaps soft. Something not too aggressive on the palate. Before we do, though, of course, is the usual. If you'd like to get in contact with me, the best way to do that is to reach out from the website at therebelbroker.com. From there, you can send along any ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions that you might have. I'll be happy to field them. I've gotten a big boost in the last couple of days in the number of folks reaching out via the website. And I can't help but wonder if it's because I turned off that whole anti-spam thing. So given the fact that since I turned it off, I've seen this jump, I would like to apologize to all of you listeners who butted heads against that thing. I'm willing to guess that the number of you who persisted and actually ended up reaching me represents a very small sample of the number of people who just went, all right, forget it. This guy clearly doesn't want to talk to me because he's making it impossible for me to send him a message. So that's off now. And I think the part I turned off was this part that judged your message by how long it was. And I just turned that part off because I think a lot of you were giving me sort of a narrative of what your question is. Because this business lends itself to that, right? If things are going weird with your escrow or you're stressing over a report or something like that, the discussion tends to take a while. So I turned that part of it off, and that seems to have made a huge difference. But I would really, I am not doing this to try to make it hard on you. So if you do run into problems, please take a second to send me an email, which is what you're trying to do. If you want to avoid the website and not do it through that, yeah, kind of a catch-22, isn't it? You can send those to therebel@therebelbroker.com. That's basically where those messages go anyway, so feel free to send them that way if you prefer. That's therebel@therebelbroker.com. In addition, we're still doing the fabulous $50 Amazon gift card giveaway. All you've got to do to be entered to win is to head on over to the website, therebelbroker.com. Go to the very tippy top of the page. There's a red button. Take the survey to support the show. Click that bad boy. Offer up your email and email address and if you'd like name. You don't have to put your name. I didn't make that a required field, I don't think. But then click take the survey. Enter your email address there as well. Excuse me. Answer the questions, and then you will be entered to win. But your email address must match what you entered on that first little window that popped up. So if you want to take a minute out of your day to do that, you're doing the show a great service. You're helping me grow the show. You're helping the show move forward, to offer more, to just keep giving and giving and giving. And you're getting yourself entered for the possibility of pocketing 50 digital Amazon dollars. There's just no downside. It's a beautiful thing. And I hope you'll take advantage of it. We'll be doing that drawing on October 1st. So just a few days away, not long now at all. And I got to tell you, given that we've had a pretty good response, but I'll tell you, I think that it makes it it's a relatively small number of people when you talk about drawings and stuff like this and folks winning things. It's a relatively small amount of folks. It's basically a room full of people. So you got a halfway decent chance of winning this thing. Plus, on November 1st, I'm going to do the same thing all over again. So there you go. Enter now. Enter before October 1st, or before the show that's closest to October 1st, whenever that is. And that's when we'll announce it. I'm not sure how I can announce it. I don't want to give someone's email address out over. Maybe just the first name of the person, something like that. But in any event, the drawing will be then. You'll get notified via email, so you will absolutely know if you won. Any other sexy stuff? I guess the other thing would be how to become a member of the Insiders group, which I guess I've sort of slouched into calling it. It's basically the folks who will get content and other materials just sent right to them. Information on what's coming on the show, and also probably a once a month newsletter that's just going to be a written form of an idea or talking about what's coming, big stuff, that kind of thing. Typically, probably something that we aren't talking about on the show, but I think is worth your time to know about. The best way to get onto that list is to text the word Rebel Broker to 44222. That's texting the word Rebel Broker, all one word, to the number 44222. It'll then respond back and say, hey, success, you've reached out to the Rebel Broker. Please provide your email address and you'll be added to the list. Voila, you are on the list. And if it's too bad I can't just have folks chime in who have joined the list. You do not get beat up with emails from me. In fact, I think I may have sent one email to the group so far since I started it. So it's not one of those things where I'm beating you up. I'm not filling up your mailbox. I'm not constantly pinging you with things that I want you to try to buy. I'm honestly trying to use this as an avenue to share with you new ideas, to put things in front of you maybe that might help you either just fuel your interest in real estate or in things relating to this business, or help you with you if you're a buyer, seller, investor, whatever your needs might be. Okay, so let's jump in first, and I guess we can now call this Robert's pet subject, and that is the whole future of automation, that type of thing, and how it's going to affect the workforce. And it's an interesting one because it comes to us from the Telegraph, and the title of the article is "The Era of Robots." And I guess, here's one thing that I think a lot of folks who are in this business would have said, I feel pretty good. I don't feel like I can be automated out of existence. And this is one of the ones that strikes me as something that will likely be a surprise, particularly because there are folks already working on this. It's already starting to happen. The headline here from the Telegraph is "The Era of Robots: Thousands of Builders to Lose Jobs as Machines Take Over," says construction boss. This is super interesting. Just came out the other day. Skyscrapers in the city of London could soon be built by robots rather than by people, according to the boss of one of the United Kingdom's biggest construction firms. According to them, quote, "The result would be huge productivity gains as more work could be done by fewer people, but also mass layoffs as traditionally labor-intensive construction projects hire fewer and fewer staff." Now, obviously, this is happening in London, but that doesn't mean that's where it stays. This is absolutely something that would happen. And given all of the costs related to building in the United States, I think that this is something that would absolutely have a whole lot of appeal. And here's one other little tidbit for you. This one comes to us from Housing Wire. There is a new overtime labor law that's going to change the housing industry, according to them. Salaried employees making less than $47,000 must be compensated for anything over 40 hours. So that's overtime, right? This is going to go into effect on December 1st, 2016. And when you start reading through this, and most of this document doesn't relate specifically to construction, but obviously affects construction, it absolutely starts shifting that equation from it not being worth it to automate certain things relating to construction to it becomes much more reasonable. Remember, this is the argument we've made before. What was the tipping point? What are some of the things that came into play that pushed fast food into automation, right? Now, you can argue that those entry-level jobs are some of the most basic, right? You're not really learning how to flip a burger in those jobs. As a young person or someone new to the workforce, you're learning how to work, right? You're learning how to be a member of a team of people that are all having to interact with each other to do different parts of a mission, which is to deliver a bag of food to somebody. And that doesn't just require filling up a milkshake or flipping a burger or cleaning a grease trap or taking an order. Those are all things that need to get done, but those are easily trainable skills. The things that you need to learn are scheduling your time so that you can get to work on time, getting to work on time, pacing yourself at work so that you're able to be productive during your entire shift. There's a lot of different things that you learn that you don't even realize you're learning when you're getting that first job. And those are super basic, and those can be easily automated, and they are being automated. And there's no question that's happening. It's already happened in some cities in the United States, and it's just going to get more and more common, particularly now that we're in a situation where the minimum wage is getting pushed up to $15 an hour. That has now absolutely pushed it to the point where that's going to happen. And then we talked about farming, right? I think it was lettuce was the one that would really had a huge amount of automation going on. But you can count on more and more of that happening. The stuff that is that basic level stuff. Now, the reason why, and then we've got driving and all those other things. But what I find interesting about this is I don't consider construction one of those things I would have put in my top 10 list of things that are easily automatable. I guess when it comes to building a skyscraper, there's an awful lot of that, right? I mean, there's sort of a template for build the first floor and then repeat 50 times if you're building a 50-story building. That seems to be what's going on here. And now with rules like this that are going into place, regulations like this that relate directly to the bottom line of companies, it's going to make it much more attractive for these companies to push for automation where they can. And we're already seeing technological innovations happening over in England that I think are going to just push this to the next level. And here's another thing. I'm going to throw out another theory here. I've already pushed out the idea that all the experts are wrong in terms of how fast we're going to see this stuff happen. I think we're going to see it happen much faster. What was it? The quote unquote experts were saying 2040, 2050. Nah. We will have big chunks of this automation dynamic already happening by 2025. I really have no question in my mind that that's going to be happening. In fact, to one degree, since I kind of live and where the epicenter of this kind of stuff would probably be in terms of Silicon Valley, I'm wagering I'm going to see it being a super common part of day-to-day life here probably by 2021, 2022. Within the next 3 or 4 years, I honestly think that that's a realistic expectation on a lot of different fronts, particularly in the driving world. So we'll see how that goes. But there's already standards. The federal government's already creating standards for this stuff. So everything is proceeding at a pace to really embrace this. And here's what I think is going to happen. This is going to snowball. This is not going to be one of those things where there's a gradual transition. In fact, there's other articles. I can't remember if I saved them. The articles that discuss things like automated driving are no longer approached because there was another accident. There was a Google car got sideswiped by a guy in a service van who ran a red light. So it wasn't the automated car's fault. It was the human's fault. And the tenor of these articles relating to this subject, up until that article really for me was sort of, oh, well, we really need to keep an eye on this automated stuff. This is a problem. No, the tenor of this article was, we need to get, as soon as we get to the point where it's all automated, that's when really the threat to people's health and safety will go down, because the automated way is the way to go. So you're starting to hear this narrative that has totally shifted within the last 6 months from, fear the automated driver to fear the human driver. The human driver is the problem, not the automated driver. In this state, you'll see the commuter lane will eventually become the automated car lane. The only cars that will be allowed to go in that lane will be the automated cars. You'll find downtown areas will declare themselves automated car only. If you want to get into downtown, you'll have to park in a parking lot outside of a certain area. Could you imagine? And for those of you who've been to London, you know that they've got congestion zones, right? I lived there while this was going on, and if you went inside of a certain circle, there was like I can't remember, it was 3 or 4 zones, but there was different zones. And if you went within this certain congestion zone, there was actually a fee that you actually had to pay to drive around in this congestion zone. You can bet that one of the first things London will do will automate their taxi service and make you not even allow you to drive in to the congestion zones. It'll be automated car zones, and if you want to go drive manually in those areas, you'll have to pay a huge fee to do that. But this is all going to happen, and here's the thing that is fueling my idea that this is going to steamroller after this is it's going to go well. Even if there are the exact same number of folks being injured, the perception of recaptured free time is going to be ridiculous. even the people who are scared of the idea, concerned about the idea, and all that other kind of stuff. When folks realize they can sit now in a car and take that average commute time of 20 to 30 minutes and now turn that into I do anything I want time, we've already got cars that are now Wi-Fi hotspots. You're going to be able to sit in that car and you're going to watch Netflix movies. You're going to be able to read your favorite websites. You're going to be able to check on Imgur and see your favorite pictures. You're going to be able to go onto YouTube. You're going to be able to log into your Netflix account or maybe log into your Amazon account and watch video. You're going to be able to do work. You're going to be able to Skype with your buddies, whatever. Listen to my podcast. There you go, which you're already doing, but you can do other things too. You could juggle oranges while you're commuting and listening to my show. Folks are going to love it because of their perception of reclaimed time. So I think that that what this will do is sort of soften the entire approach to automation. I think folks' first exposure to it is going to be this kind of thing. And then it's not going to be something that's scary. It's going to be something that they feel like is good for them. So the adoption rate, I think, will go through the roof. And once you get proof of concepts of these kinds of things, when folks in business see, well, if you can automate this, you could automate these things we do in my company. And then I can have production going on 24 hours a day and not have and cut my workforce by 50%. Right? So I honestly think that in 100 years, people will look back and just be blown away at how quickly things changed. And if you're a student of history at all, if you just look back to what happened at the turn of the 20th century, for folks that had to go from understanding what it takes to maintain a horse and then maintain a car, or what the difference between having a river you need to be near to wash your laundry versus having a washing machine. All of these Industrial Revolution style changes, right, that not only change the lifestyles of people who consume it, but change work lives because people need to build those things. We're absolutely heading into that. That's going to cause a crazy dynamic. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. I know I harp on this one quite a bit, but it's really just part of me sharing with you each and every little tidbit that comes along that I think is really fueling this transition, and I'm hoping you're ready for it. When it comes and it passes you and it's now ahead of you, I want you to be able to say, I knew this was coming. I prepared. I'm professionally ready for this. Let's carry on, and then it won't be something that catches you by surprise and maybe leaves you in a bit of a struggle for a while you kind of figure out a way to catch up. All right, we're going to take a quick break here for a second, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the affordability crisis, the new headline that is really just spin. And if you've been listening to this show and you heard this headline, you probably already knew that, but we'll check just to make sure. So we'll be right back. Don't go away. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner-broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We just kind of did an update on what we're seeing in terms of automation and how it's going to affect employment moving forward. Really, the point here, the reason why I share it, is employment is at the key of solving real estate problems. In order for you to be able to buy real estate, in order for you to be able to afford much of anything, you need a job. So if you don't have a job, you don't have the money to do what you need to do. So this is something I think is going to be huge, and I do it as much to sort of ring a bell of warning to folks to be ready for it, because I think the change is going to come a lot faster than a lot of people think. If I end up being wrong, if we end up hitting 2025 and everyone decided that it was the rise of the Terminators, and no, we're not going to do it. And we go out and we burn all of the automation robots and their chips and erase their software. I will do a mea culpa. And I will retire and become a hermit because obviously I didn't know what I was talking about. But in any event, don't think that's going to happen. So we'll just charge forward. And even if I am wrong, at least you were prepared, right? Maybe you added some more skills to your repertoire so that you are ready for a more tech-filled world in the future. Next on our list, though, is really another example. It almost feels like an I told you so. This is a headline from Housing Wire. Affordability crisis almost over? Household incomes increase faster than home prices. And now everyone has glommed onto this, and this is all based on that goofy article that we talked about. It was either earlier this week or late last week, where they talked about the median household income. And when you did the actual... And when you calculate that, that does not mean that the typical household suddenly got an increase in income. That's not what happened. It simply means that that half the median is the point in which half of the number of folks above and the other half are below that number. So it doesn't indicate anything relating to a distribution of that benefit. It only gives you the middle point, not the average. So it may be that just a few people at the top of that got much bigger increases. And actually, when you look at the stats, that's what you tend to discover. And anecdotally, you can see this because you're just not seeing it reflected in anything else in terms of whether or not people are saving or spending or any of these other types of things. You're just not seeing it. So the things you would expect to happen when someone suddenly has more household income don't seem to be happening. So there you go. So both extrapolating from other data and just looking at the data they're actually using, this is absolutely complete crap. So anybody who would really want to be honest about it and spend a little time looking at this would I think, at least come to the conclusion that the possibility that this is not a real thing should be mentioned. But instead, we've now got a bunch of different ones. I think MSNBC was one. I think CBS was another source. I think CNN even chimed in on this. All of these folks want to jump in on this, let's call it good type of attitude relating to this, when the reality is it's not. And now they're trying to use this as a headline to convince you that you're doing well as it relates to house prices. Well, at least better than house prices. Of course, they get a little bit clearer on that point later in the article. But like so many things, it's the last paragraph instead of the first. So you have to kind of dig to get down to it. Let's see. And it's amazing who sort of perpetuates this. The S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller indices came out showing yet another increase in home prices in July at a slightly faster rate than June. In fact, this increase was just 0.6% short of the record high set in July of 2006. The industry's reaction compared this increase to the recent increase in household income, which was not an increase in household income. It was Anyway, all seem to agree that while home prices are increasing, the recent rise in income, which rose at a faster rate than home prices, could eventually ease the affordability problems with home ownership. I call shenanigans. That is not correct. That is not what's going to happen. In fact, these numbers tend to tell us that for some higher group of folks who are earning more, that may be true. But for the majority of folks, for the average household, that is not the case. So they kind of lay out the same arguments we've heard before. From Zillow, we hear today's release shows that home prices continue to grow at a steady pace. This price growth is, among other factors, supported by solid gains in incomes. But it's not. Let's see. Who else was quoted here? Quote, in fact, the latest household income numbers hold good news. For the first time in recent memory, income growth is keeping pace with and even slightly exceeding home value growth nationwide. And this was according, again, to Zillow's chief economist, Svenja Gudel. Quote, the bad news, which is bad news all by itself, but his good news isn't really good news. The bad news, incomes are so far behind that they need to do a lot of catching up before homes become more affordable, especially for those at the bottom of the income distribution and in the country's most expensive markets. Other experts agree that more wage inflation is needed in order for the market to fully recover. Now let's think about this for a minute. They want to talk about the market recovering. What will cause a market to recover? Are we in a market that is low on buyers? We talked about this yesterday. This is another example of people talking about healing a market that has cancer by treating them for the flu. That's not the problem. Our problem isn't this. Our problem has nothing to do with people getting loans or having enough money to buy. Our problem has to do with inventory. All these other things they're talking about will solve themselves with an increase in inventory. Prices will stabilize. In fact, they'll mostly go down if we build enough, right? We just need to facilitate that and allow that to happen. Quote, the real estate indices are beginning to show a slowdown in home price appreciation. Until we start seeing wage inflation, real estate prices will be stretched versus incomes. And that's according to Brent. How do these people get these names? Brent Nayatre, Director of Capital Markets at iReserve Residential Lending. No, but everybody wants to talk about the solutions to the problem that just strictly push costs up, right? I think that's because that's where everyone's bread is buttered. So they all move towards these solutions that are like, well, yeah, now that with prices are so high with houses, the solution is just to give everybody more money so they can afford to buy. Or provide more product, increase the supply, and people can happily continue to earn what they're earning and buy a house. That's a novel approach, right? But unfortunately, it's this inflationary thing that needs to happen in order for a lot of these folks to survive or feel like the market's going in the right direction. Quicken Loans Vice President Bill Banfield shared similar sentiments. Quote, despite recent data pointing to slower sales, home prices continue to rise faster than income in many areas. Low inventory will continue to be a challenge. At least he's pointing that out for buyers looking for the right home and can cause those bidding to be more aggressive on the house they finally want to purchase. They got some interesting stats here out of the 20 cities, Portland, Seattle, and Denver reported the highest annual gains over the last 6 months. In July, Portland increased 12.4%, Seattle increased 11.2%, Denver increased 9.4%. And there's some general cooling there. All right, so now that we laid all that out, I also came across a Zero Hedge article titled Sucker Punch on Main Street, Disturbing Facts About the Fed's Phony Housing Recovery. And I'll tell you what, if you only read the first paragraph of this particular article, I think it's a very interesting point that bears repeating. You can check out the whole thing if you like. Of course, for all the articles discussed in today's show, I will link them in the show notes at therebelbroker.com. But this one's interesting. I'm going to go ahead and just quote it here. Quote, whether you think there has been a housing recovery or not is a matter of perspective. Sales are indeed up 117% since the 2010 low. But that low was literally the worst level in the history of this data since 1963 as a percentage of population growth. It was the Great Depression of housing, the only possible result of the greatest housing bubble since the 1920s, if not in history. While sales have rebounded since that low, the current sales rate has, and this is the payoff, while sales have rebounded since that low, the current sales rate has barely recovered to the levels seen at the recession lows of 1991 and 1982. This rebound is little more than a dead cat bounce after 6 years of recovery, and now it may be faltering. When you look at their little chart here, mortgage rates versus new homes sold under 200,000 down 61% since 2007. This is an interesting read. I'm going to suggest that you all take a minute to read this. They've got some great charts, median new home sales price versus home ownership rates, just all kinds of interesting stuff. And you realize that while everything feels on fire, right? You feel like you've got this amazing marketplace. If you actually look at the performance of the market, we're barely matching really bad previous downturns in terms of where we are. The numbers I've shared with you before in terms of actual numbers of homes being built, the lowest I'm seeing in the history of the data, which goes back to the late 60s, with only a couple of comparable times where new home construction has been this low. So given that, God, I look at these numbers, and I think the last time we talked about this, I referred to my moment of clarity. You look at some numbers and you go, well, crap, there's your problem, right? We're not allowing any new homes to be built. It's just not happening. And so there's your problem. So what does that equal? And unfortunately, we're all forced to live in this world where it equals this, and that is you get artificially inflated prices because they're just not building homes. The rate at which homes are being built is ridiculously low. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I can. This may be one of those sites that doesn't let me do it, but I'm going to go ahead and try to share these charts. They're awesome, so feel free to peruse them. They'll be up on the Pinterest page. And of course, as I mentioned before, there will be a link to this article in the show notes, so feel free to take a few minutes out and read it if you're so inclined. It's kind of a mind blower. And while I often will give Zero Hedge a less than glowing commentary because they come to some conclusions that just don't match. They kind of take data and they go, oh, well, and there's a little bit of a fudge factor there. And we've talked about that on previous shows, particularly relating to too much density of rental properties, too many properties that have been converted to rentals, that kind of thing. But this one is this is data that just sort of stands on its own. So it's definitely worth your time. All right, folks, appreciate you spending your valuable time with me, if only for a little bit of the day, each day, Monday through Friday. Thanks again for listening. I will talk to you all next time.